but it at least serves that deep urge that people have of feeling like government for so long has not served their interests. And so in that moment, folks can at least see a man that says, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and is at least in some show sitting down and signing a sheet of paper that purportedly does that objective. And so one of the things that I, with the SPLC, will be focusing on, along with countless others, is thinking about how do we communicate to people better moving forward, exactly how the policies that SPLC is putting forward directly impacts them on a day-to-day basis.
Alrighty, welcome in. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon and
David Person. How's it going, brother?
It is, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine, I'm sure. But, as we said before we came on, this is the start of never not having something to talk about. It's what I was saying a couple of weeks ago when I said the worst part of the Trump administration is the never-ending bullshit, the never-ending amount of things, just every single day, something more stupid, outrageous, offensive, detrimental to the country than the day before. And it's, it's all... I mean, listen, he's figured out a way to game the system. He figured out that if you just load it all in there, if you just keep piling these things in and just jam the system with enough, just absolute dumb shit that the system can't handle it. The system's not built to handle a president who just will straight up lie to you. I mean, like, for example, when he pardons people who beat police and then the next day says, I love police. Nobody loves police more than me.
Right.
Okay, I'm the best. I'm the most law and order president in history. They love me. They love Trump. Trump. And I mean, it's just, what are you talking about?
Well, one thing I've been happy to see on that note, is that police officers who were there defending democracy at the Capitol have been speaking out. They have not been shy. They've been speaking out. I'm hearing them on news media interviews, and I think that's good. I think that's great, and I hope that will be a counterbalance to the fallacies he continues to put out there and the double speak. It's not going to work as long as they keep speaking out. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I hope not. I noticed the police unions, took a shot at him as well. I put that in the story that I wrote for Wednesday, today, which is when we record the podcast. And so the national police unions took a couple of shots at him about what, the pardons. Now, of course, they included Joe Biden because he had pardoned one, indigenous protester who, was responsible for a bombing that killed 2 FBI agents. And I don't agree that that guy should have been pardoned. Okay. I mean, I don't. I mean, I think that, I think that he should have served out the life sentence.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that either. I don't know why Biden would have done that.
There's been a lot made about Biden's commutations of sentences and stuff, and how these awful people that he's done. But there's no comparison because the commutations of all the sentences left them in prison. What he did is honor his pledge to do away with the death penalty at the federal level. Right. And so he commuted all of these sentences, including some very violent offenders out there, but they are all commuted to life in prison. Okay. They're not getting out. And so there's no comparison past that. But I don't. Yeah, you're right. I don't know why either. But before we get into that, we need to tell everybody, remind everybody that this thing doesn't just happen because we're benevolent people and want to give you our takes on things and have you listen. And you're as much as we enjoy you listening, and you do listen quite a bit. It doesn't pay the bills. But who does pay for these fine folks to do this podcast are the folks at Wind Creek Entertainment, and they're friends with the Porch Creek Indians, and we appreciate them and what they have done for us here in allowing this program to continue on, which is say, hey, we like it. We appreciate what you're doing for the state and what you're doing for politics, and we like the conversations. We like for people to have some knowledge that's not you screaming nonsense into a microphone and trying to outrage everybody all the time. And so here, just continue doing what you're doing, which is the greatest support you could ever have, and we are so appreciative of it. They operate, as you know, 3 casinos in this state, some other casinos around the globe and in the country, including south side of Chicago, in Pennsylvania. Yeah, there you go. And then some some island locations down in Aruba, and if you're interested in that sort of thing, which sounding better and better these days. But no, they are they're good folks, and we appreciate them for what they're doing. And the thing of it is I know full well, a lot of the folks on the reservation are conservative folks, and so I know that some of the viewpoints that we may have on a variety of different topics, they may not share those, but they still support the sharing of information and the podcast, and so we do appreciate them. So go check them out. As David and I can both attest, the accommodations in Atmore and Wetumpka are top notch. The ones in Montgomery are as well. Go have a fun weekend. Go stay, hit the spa, hit the casino floor, have some fun, and let them know that we sent you down. So it's Wind Creek Entertainment. You can look them up online, book yourself a stay, book yourself a hotel or a spa reservation, book yourself a reservation at Fire Restaurant. You will not regret that. So we appreciate them, and this is brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. So, So, all right, let's get into this properly, I guess. So it is the first few days of the Trump administration, and it is off with a bang, with a Heil Hitler salute from the co-president. I mean, just these people who are, it's a Roman salute. Fuck you. You know what? I mean, you don't know anything. It's a Roman. It's a Roman salute. You know it's a Roman. I mean, he's autistic. How dare you? I mean, fuck off. I mean,
what does that have to do with anything?
Oh, well, he doesn't understand, the emotion.
He's the richest man in the world. He's built businesses, though some of them obviously are in dubious shape. Mm-hmm. Why are they giving him a pass on a?
Yeah, he apparently in Trump MAGA world, you can be a genius 1 minute. But then a stumbling person who does not recognize your own the effect of your own actions and what you're doing, not once but twice on there, and so that's the excuse. I don't know, man. That whole love of Elon is weird to me all the way around. I don't understand it.
Well, I think what it boils down to, I think people are intoxicated by the idea of somebody accumulating that much wealth. Capitalism is so ingrained in us that I think we really do make celebrity. I mean, this is a strange era that we live in, but we've made celebrities out of billionaires simply because they become billionaires, or multimillionaires simply because they become multimillionaires without any other redeeming, virtues or values.
Yeah, we have, and it's just so it's so weird though. That didn't used to be. I mean, okay, we there were some families that I wouldn't say idolized. The Rockefellers, the Kennedys, some of those folks like that. The power families, but at the same time, there was also this level of disdain through the country for ultra wealthy people. Up until recently. This was a thing. And people were somewhat ashamed of having excess, that they would hide it. They would go to lengths to hide the fact that they had extra money and not to rub it into people's faces and stuff. And now there's just been a flip. And I guess maybe it was the 80s, the Reagan era of the 80s and stuff, and the greed is good type deal. But it's just so weird now to see the embrace of, first of all, a guy who is utterly strange and completely unrelatable to most people. And I don't say that because he has Asperger's or whatever he says he has. I say that because he's a weird dude, man. I mean, it's just, from the number of kids to the strange relationships, to the strange behavior all the time, to the just awkward beliefs. And it's not even the fact that I think people should dislike him for these things. It's that most of the time when you see somebody that is, that draws people in,
Mhm.
like he has, they're relatable in some way. They're endearing to them, and there's no way
Yeah.
that he's endearing to them.
Yeah, even if you look at Trump, I say to people all the time, we may not like we may not like his policies, we don't like his character,
Mhm.
but he does have a certain level of charisma.
Yes.
Now, meaning that he has a way to charm, and there are a percentage of people who are attracted to
Mhm.
his type of charm. Not me, not you, but
Right.
clearly a measurable number of people who are.
Yeah.
But this Elon Musk guy, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have this charm. He's just like you say. He's just sort of an awkward acting, awkward looking person.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And it's, I've told people before, and I said, I know now that this is a very unpopular thing to say because we know so much about Trump and how he behaves. But I get the feeling that prior to his run for office and the crazy shit he started saying, that Trump in a small dose would probably have been a pretty fun afternoon on a golf course. You know what I mean? Him out. He's a very personable guy. He's making jokes. He's saying off the wall stuff that's meaningless because he's just a dude playing golf. It doesn't matter if he makes crass jokes or says something off color or whatever, because he's just out on the golf course. And he's not the leader of the free world saying those things. But he's a guy that's bold, and he's coming up to you and taking you around and doing different stuff and setting up these deals. You hear from these movie stars and stuff who talk about how Trump would call them out of the blue and be like, "Hey, I got so and so coming over for a director or somebody coming over to play golf at the course. You want to come over and play golf with us? I feel like getting you two guys together would be and he was that kind of guy, that kind of put people together a little bit. And so, yeah, I get that. You're right. He does have this level of charisma, this boldness that does make him more, I don't know, necessarily relatable, but somebody that people would gravitate towards, a little bit in certain
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, I think definitely a certain type of person for sure.
Mhm.
You know, now but I think there's charm and then there's charm. So you got somebody like Trump, who I think his charm is sort of selective, and
Mhm.
then you got somebody. Let's take somebody else who's a conservative, who I also think has a lot of charm. George W. Bush.
Mhm.
George W. Bush, I think, really does come across to people across a lot of different boundaries and opinions as somebody that, I wouldn't mind taking a picture with that guy or shaking
Yeah.
his hand or having a drink with him or something.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
You
regular
know?
guy type vibe. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a
yeah.
regular dude type of vibe, and yeah, no, yeah, you're right, and him getting the giggles from whatever it was that Obama said to him
Right,
at
right.
the inauguration really
Yeah,
cracked me up. I have no idea. I've seen their lip reading where they claim that Obama said we got to figure out a way to stop this, but and that's it. And then other people saying it also looked like W might have taken a gummy before he got there. But and just the fact that that he was sitting next to Hillary Clinton at the last one, and after the end of the speech, he looked over and said, "That's some weird shit." And
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
I mean, it's you're right about that, but we've started now, and I guess it's good we can joke a little bit because it's off to the horrible start we thought it would be, with the first of all, the I don't know, top of the list has got to be the pardons, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. I know in the closing segment, because we were going to talk about some of the Republicans that are trying to excuse this away as the law and order people, but but also the executive orders that he signed. They're just the worst. They're just the reversal of all these different Biden plans, including one to lower prescription drug prices, another one to to chase after kids, immigrant children at schools and churches. It just I, what always got me, and this was the thing and I wrote about this week. What kills me is these people who like the Republican representatives from this state, the Congress people, the folks in the legislature everywhere, coming out and saying, we're back. America's back. America's about to return from this dark time. We're going to bring back freedom, and we're going to bring back economic stability. We're going to bring, listen, we're going to do all these great and wonderful things. We're going to, don't even worry about it, because America is back, baby. What the fuck are y'all talking about? What world are you living in? And I've asked people this. I've asked people who said to me, "Well, I'll be so glad when Trump gets in and stops this America that Joe Biden has destroyed." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna need you to explain that. Explain this to me. What exactly Joe Biden has destroyed in your life? Where is your life worse because of Joe Biden?" Because if I recall correctly, when Joe Biden come into office, we had lost about 20 million jobs, and this dude had come in on what was certain to be a recession coming in. There was no way around it. We were going to have an economic recession. The country was going to be in terrible shape. There's no way he was going to be able to restore these jobs that he was looking for. There's no way that we were going to be able to do a lot of these things. And so explain to me. And, inevitably I get something about the cost of eggs or gas or some shit, that really is inconsequential, and that Trump is not going to fix, and probably going to make worse with his stupid tariffs. And past, I mean, it's like I said, I wrote in the column that I had this week, you're living in the America that you want. Okay. You're living in the America that you want. You're safer than ever. You're making more money than ever. You're spending more money than ever. You're going on. This last holiday season was the most money spent by a wide margin in a holiday season ever.
Yeah,
Ever.
I think in your column you said, and I was surprised by this number. I hadn't looked it up myself, but I think you said the holiday spending was at about $1 trillion.
Yeah. Just short of a trillion, like $996 million or $1 billion is what they spent.
we round up. I mean, that's $1 trillion. I mean, that is really astounding, especially at a time when you got a group of people that are whining about, as you just said, how bad things are. How bad could they be if we're spending $1 trillion during the holidays?
Exactly, man. I mean, it's just, it drives me nuts. It drives me insane. Because you'll say, well, this is, I mean, and it's always, whenever they describe what's wrong, it's always something right outside of their lives. Well, it didn't affect me, but it will affect me at some point. This thing is going to affect me. And it's always, no, it's not, and also, and something I probably should have had, is the lack of personal responsibility that they have demonstrated in some of this is off the charts as well. But just like the blaming of of Joe Biden for inflation when we know that there was inflation because of the pandemic, and we know about the number of causes. We know where it was in other countries and where it still is in a lot of countries, and that we're doing much better. But also, we also know that a lot of that inflation that they talk about came from corporate greed because they used the cover of inflation to jack up these prices, and nobody bothered to hold any of those people accountable for any of that, and instead tried to blame Joe Biden and the administration for all of it. And give Trump and them credit for putting it right at their feet and making it to where they couldn't avoid it, I guess. But assigning blame to the other party. But at the same time, that responsibility is on you as a voter, as a person living here, is to understand who is actually responsible for this.
Yeah. Well, people definitely need to be using some common sense and keeping track of what's going on. And I think, and again, I commend you for the column you wrote, and I would urge people that listen, if they haven't read it, they should read it, because you really go through methodically and point out, the fallacies in this whole idea about, Joe Biden being a failure as a president and Trump being some miraculous savior. It's just the facts don't bear that out. And, I'm going to say this, and we've talked about this before. The Democratic Party has done a poor job of really, I think, doing public relations for itself. And the White House under Joe Biden, God bless him, has did a horrible job of promoting, its achievements in a way where I think it could penetrate, the marketplace and penetrate the voting populace. They just didn't do a good job of it. And so, and then you've got Trump, who has been a relentless whiner. I say he's a spoiled brat masquerading as a grown man, because all he seems to do is whine about how something hasn't gone his way or how somebody hasn't done him right. He's the brattiest public figure I've ever seen in my life. But that kind of thing, for whatever reason, seems to resonate. And maybe it's because there are a lot of people out there who are just really kind of like him. They're whining. Things aren't going their way. They have this huge sense of entitlement. So when things don't go their way, all they do is whine and complain. I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the other thing that irritates the hell out of me is this idea from Trump and from other Republicans that he has now an overwhelming mandate from the American people. What are you talking about? You want by 1 million votes, because y'all finally won a popular vote? You think that's an overwhelming mandate? Yeah, I mean, I know you hadn't won one since 2000, or 2004. So I get that it's been a bit, but at the same time, I mean, I don't recall this same overwhelming mandate nonsense coming from the right when Joe Biden won by 8 million votes.
Right.
Or when Obama wiped the floor with two different folks. And so, I mean, just stop. It's just nonsense. And this idea that we now have to accept some of the things that are happening because Trump has a mandate. No, we don't. And birthright citizenship is a big one.
Yeah. The whole mandate thing is just a flat out lie. I was looking at that about a week or so ago, Josh. So, Trump, when you combine, well, first of all, when you look at the votes, the percentage of votes that Trump got versus those that Kamala Harris got, the percentage difference is something like maybe 1.5%. And then when you add in the votes that Jill Stein and Robert F. Kennedy got, the difference is like 0.5% between Harris, Kennedy, and Stein and Trump. That's not a mandate. And that still doesn't account. That still only counts for, I think, if I'm not mistaken, something like a third or maybe a little bit more of eligible voters. So you got this huge percentage of people who just didn't vote for anybody. So how's it a mandate? That's a lie, and it doesn't add up mathematically.
No, it doesn't. And but math has never been their strong suit, and
Mm.
you learn that every time they take control and wreck the economy. And it's because they're gonna do it this time as well. You can watch, you can see it,
Mm.
coming like a train right now. You don't have to be an economist. You don't even have to be particularly good at math. I'm neither. And you can see them you can see it coming. I mean, it's just basic common sense, of how you go about things, and to not do things that people who are very smart tell you not to do, like put a tariff on Mexico and Canada and China, where all of your goods come from. That's going to cause you some problems. It's going to cause you some significant problems. It already did. It caused. That's what people. I've talked about this before. We just gloss right over so much of factual things that happened in the previous Trump administration because there's so much bullshit that happens. Like, for example, when he imposed the tariffs on Canada, and one of the tariffs applied to lumber that was coming from Canada. That's what caused there was a dip in the housing market in 2018, 2019. That's what caused it. Was that was the lumber prices soared because of those tariffs, and people stopped building new homes. So,
Yeah,
um,
when you talk about the impact of these decisions, and I think that's a great point. You started to mention immigration. I mean, what do people think is going to happen when supposedly millions of undocumented people are going to be rounded up? What do they think is going to happen? Those people who are undocumented here in the States, they're paying taxes, which is something that has often been denied or ignored. They're paying taxes, local taxes, state taxes, in some cases probably federal taxes too. They are doing work that in many cases Americans have not done. And if anybody doubts that, all you need to do is go back to HB 56 here in the state of Alabama. What happened? The farmers and the business people were complaining because they weren't able to find people to do the work that the undocumented people had been doing. So the solution that Trump has, which is to just, grab people up and break up families and ship people out, what do you think's going to happen? Prices are going to go up. Work is not going to be able to be done that we need done. Why don't we learn that our fears and our bigotry only come back to bite us in the butt? When are we going to learn that?
we're never going to learn that. I mean, it's just you know, people people take the emotional route on these things so often, and coach, we make these arguments with people, and I say, well, listen, they're artificially depressing the wages. That they're just, I mean, you've got those jobs could be going to Americans and who are making more money. Dude, we can't get we can't get enough Americans right now to work in much better jobs, than those. They're not taking those jobs. Those jobs are the people are willingly walking hundreds of miles, if not thousands of miles, walking to come here and take those jobs. And I hate to tell you this, but it is now a part of our culture. It's part of our country that this is what we have done, that these folks are going to come and that they are going to be employed by the folks that run our farms, our poultry factories, all these different places. Now, I think there should absolutely be some things done to safeguard these folks and make sure that they are making a living wage and different things like that they can actually survive on. But at the same time, the idea that you're going to just come in and replace these, and all of a sudden, all these white people that are whatever Americans in whatever regard are just going to come flooding into the fields to pick the crops and roof the houses. Shut up! They're not. There's no way that's what's going to happen. It's just never going to happen. And what you're going to do is you're going to shut down those industries, and you're going to cause prices to skyrocket.
Not
No,
only are no, you're not going to get a bunch of white people to do it, Josh. You ain't going to get a bunch of black people to do it
hell
either,
no. You ain't
unless
getting anybody.
unless they're from perhaps from the Caribbean or something like that. And
Well,
even they're not going to do it, I suspect,
the-
because Trump is going to try to round them up and get them out too.
True. Oh, it's true. But
Yeah.
let me state it another way. All right, because I
Okay.
think this is the way that Democrats ought to start stating this.
Mhm.
You're not going to get any American to come and do those jobs for the price you're paying. All right.
Mhm.
Now you could listen, you pay me 150 grand a year, I might think about picking crops or going out, and roofing some houses or, figuring out how to drywall. I mean, probably not. I'm not good at manual labor, but listen, I would consider it if the price was right, but you're not going to get, that's not the price. That's not the price. That's not what you're going to pay. You're not going to pay them $20 an hour. You're not going to pay them. You're not. Hell, most cases, you're not paying them $15 an hour to do a lot of these menial jobs. And so that's where we are right now. And the idea that it's going to change and you can do this, I mean, stop it. And the birthright citizenship thing, I mean, I don't think even this Supreme Court, owned as it is by Donald Trump, is going to approve that. All right. I mean, it's in the Constitution. It's long been part of the American culture. It is our basic principle, one of our founding principles in this country. If they would be so bold as to overturn a founding principle of the country, that and to disregard the beacon on a hill stuff that they've preached for generations now, I mean, then there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing left. There's nothing left of the country at that point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd be very surprised if they did. I think you've got at least a couple of conservative judges, probably Barrett is one, and possibly what's his name, Kavanaugh, or maybe Roberts. Who would not.
I don't think Roberts, Gorsuch, Barrett, or Kavanaugh would vote for this.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about Gorsuch, but maybe Gorsuch. It's hard to believe that they would. I can see Thomas and Alito doing it for sure.
Yeah.
Because they're just in bed with Trump. I mean,
I mean, as long as the right person paid them,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. As long as they're still getting their perks, their outside perks. Yeah,
exactly.
But I think Barrett has shown herself to be somewhat of an independent thinker at times, and Kavanaugh and Roberts have too, I think. So
I mean, you got to rely on Kavanaugh not being drunk, but otherwise, I think you're okay. And Roberts, Roberts is at this point so afraid of his legacy that he's now, penning op-eds and whatnot. And so, but yeah, and Gorsuch, Gorsuch wants to pretend that he's smart, and and so it's, I think he strives to that. Alito and Thomas gave up on the appearance of being smart quite some time back, and so they don't give a shit as long as those vacations keep coming in and somebody gives them a RV to roll around in every day. So as long as you keep paying for my mama's house, I'll do it.
I'll do it. There you go.
Yeah,
that's Thomas. Yeah.
All right, let's slide out real quick, and we're going to come back with Jerome Dees from Southern Poverty Law Center to there's a lot of legal questions, and so we should probably have an attorney answer some of these.
All right.
So,
instead of us just pontificating.
Yeah, listen, I played one on a podcast. Yeah. All right. This is Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. We'll be back in a minute. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy, as always, to be joined by Jerome Dees of the Southern Poverty Law Center. He's the policy director for Alabama over at Southern Poverty Law Center, and we like to have smart people on to come in and discuss a lot of these topics, and we have some schools that we typically choose from. Auburn, of course, at the top when we're looking for alums to come in and talk. And today we had to settle for a guy from Harvard, and God, they're so proud of it. It's just Jerome, how you doing, man?
Doing well. In my defense, I am a Bama law guy. I just happened to do mini course at Harvard, so they gave us the sweatshirt for that.
I'm sorry. Did you say Bama?
I did.
So, is that the school with the
Yeah.
second-rate basketball program in the
You
state?
should
Is
have
that
you
what?
should have just stuck with Harvard, Jerome. I think that would have played out better with
Listen,
Josh.
listen, you
Josh
went
is
straight past football season right into basketball season,
That's
which
right.
I would imagine Auburn is perfectly fine with as well.
Yeah, I'd say yes, we are. We're doing quite well. We're doing quite well. That's listen, man, we appreciate you coming on, and because I imagine things are about to pick up for you and the folks at the Southern Poverty Law Center in combating, kind of what's coming from the new Trump administration, and we've seen some things already, and I guess maybe. We saw him on the first day in front of a crowd of cheering people for some reason or another, signing executive orders. And some of them they ranged from just being a jackass, like the one where you're going to make all the federal workers return to the office full time. I mean, and the people were cheering, and I don't. What were you cheering for? Why do you care? If you know what I mean, it's like you're just so proud of being a jackass to these other people. But then there were also the terrible. There were the things that related to immigration, the birthright citizenship issue, and some other things. So I guess let's just start broadly. When you watch all that and you see it and you start to relate it to what you're doing, I mean, I guess how did you feel about those things, and what do you think is going to be the trek forward?
So, in seeing those things, obviously, aside from being uh, annoyed or frustrated or discouraged, I always try and look at things from a practical standpoint and ask myself the question, okay, how did we get here? Uh, what brings us to this particular point in American politics? And not just Inauguration Day itself, but uh, of the discourse leading up to the election itself, and then what does that mean moving forward? And I think one of the things that, I mean, anybody, if you paid remote attention to the campaign and just the general feeling about American politics, is that nobody in elected office is doing anything for me. I don't feel like my voice is being heard. Uh, Even if my voice may be heard, I don't feel like anything is being done that's going to practically affect my family as we sit down at the kitchen table. And so, with that kind of frame of mind, when you think about some of the just theatrics of Inauguration Day, of bringing out the desk in Capital One Arena and signing the executive orders there, what that does is give people a sense of like, oh, okay, I see something is actually being done. Now, whether that is actually going to be effectuated in any sort of real policy that's going to have not just an impact, but a positive impact on people's life, uh, that's obviously up for debate depending on kind of where your political leanings are. But it at least serves that deep urge that people have of feeling like government for so long uh, has not served their interests. And so in that moment, folks can at least see a man that says, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and is at least in some show sitting down and signing a sheet of paper that purportedly does that objective. And so, one of the things that I, with the SPLC, will be focusing on, along with countless others, is thinking about how do we communicate to people better moving forward? Exactly how the policies that SPLC is putting forward directly impacts them on a day-to-day basis, and try to educate and stir them to not just be knowledgeable, but engaged in the process so that way they can begin reaching out to their respective legislators. And not just on what are termed kind of the cultural topics of the day, but those kitchen table issues of, as is in the name of SPLC, those poverty issues, because at the root of it, I think that there is a deep economic uh, disdain and chagrin for where we are right now. But it's just helping people kind of connect the dots on how all of these business interests that do not have the general people's uh, best interest at heart, how they are the ones that are driving these
Yeah.
policies forward to the detriment of the average individual.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. There has to be, kind of reconfiguration of the way people, progressives of all sorts, from the very middle, even middle right down the line, have got to come to a better understanding of the media market that we're in right now. And and I've tried to help a number of different businesses and institutions around in handling their not necessarily their marketing or PR, because that reduces it down, I think, to a level that is not really what I try to do, but it's more so educating them on where we are in this framework now and what you can do, because while people, I think and see if you agree with this, I think the major mistake that the Democratic Party overall still makes today is they're relying upon legacy media, traditional media, to get the word out and educate the masses on the facts of the matter. And so often now that legacy and traditional media is understaffed and or completely absent in a lot of cases. It's not reaching those people because they have chosen other avenues in which to get their news from, and in some cases, the people just aren't very good at it. And but on the other hand, you have an opportunity in today's market because people are so understaffed, and because people have at news stations, at newspapers, at websites, a variety of places, because they're constantly in a search for good content. You have an opportunity to provide them with the content. But it has to be done in a manner in which is relatable to people. You can't just send out the same old stale press releases to folks and tell them, "Hey, this is what we did today." No, tell me how what you did to help Betty and Joe over here, and let Betty and Joe say, "This is how they helped me." You're not going to believe what happened. And make it personal to people. And it seems as though that has been missed somewhere along the way on the progressive side of things. Or the right side, they've got this thing down to a science. They're killing it. Because you're right. We can laugh at Trump sitting in front of the crowd and signing his name to these stupid executive orders all we want to, but those folks were cheering, and people got to see him doing it, and he was right when he said, "Can you imagine Joe Biden doing this?" You know, I mean, so yeah, I mean, I guess. Do you feel like I'm right in that evaluation, or when you think of this, is it something completely different?
No, I mean, I think you're 1000% spot on that for messaging to be effective, what you're trying to convey actually has to reach the audience you're trying to move. And what we are seeing right now is a mass migration of the American public away from a lot of those traditional uh, legacy media outlets to some of these newer platforms. And I think that folks are doing themselves a huge disservice by completely ignoring those platforms, particularly when we think about, I mean, that's where the bulk of, I mean, your younger millennials, your Gen Z and Gen Alpha, all of whom are either already voters or shortly to become voters, either in the 26 cycle or in the 2028 cycle. So that's a whole swath of voters that you're completely pushing off to the side uh, to go on your more traditional sites. And so I think you're they're absolutely correct in that assessment.
Jerome, we're entering into this. Well, I started to say new era, but I guess we've been here before in terms of the Trump presidency, and of course Alabama continues to be a very red state. On very conservative on a wide range of issues. What role do you see the Southern Poverty Law Center playing at this particular point in time with Trump back in office claiming to have a mandate, a false claim, but still a claim he's making, and with us about to enter into a post K. Ivy era that will again perhaps be dominated by a conservative kind of political outlook?
Yeah, so I touched on this briefly. I think one of the things that, uh, after some deep soul searching, as I'm sure a lot of us did in the 2 weeks following November 5th or 6th, um, I really felt that it was important that we leaned into the P of SPLC, and that is focusing on uh, the deep seated poverty in this state. And I think that that is something that uh, offers a lot of opportunities for bipartisan efforts. And so some of the things that we'll be working on in this upcoming legislative session are things like addressing data transparency and reporting in civil asset forfeiture, a practice that affects folks of all stripes, whether you're a middle aged white man in Andalusia or a young black man in downtown Birmingham. Uh, Law enforcement overreach that is completely unchecked because it does not go through the criminal system. It's in the civil system, which means you don't get uh, a guaranteed lawyer to represent you in those proceedings. Those are things that affect everybody in the state. Looking at issues like making sure that Alabama finally puts some money in the housing trust fund that we established all the way back in 2012, but for 12 years now has sat empty. Uh, those are the types of things that tie directly to a lot of the themes and messaging that we've heard from Alabama elected leadership, from Kay Ivey to Lieutenant Governor Ainsworth and others, as they talk about workforce development and workforce readiness. The ability to have stable housing is incredibly important to ensuring the stability of a workforce. Directly connected with that, some of the things we'll be looking at are uh, obviously addressing the issues within our prison system, but specifically how Alabama goes about in its parole and recidivism practices. I've had the honor of being a member of the Alabama Reentry Commission for the past 7 or 8 months now. And so a lot of the things that we'll be looking at are how do we better prepare individuals who have been in Department of Corrections custody for the past several years and are approaching their end of sentence date? How do we make sure that they have the driver's license and the proper uh, vital documents like birth certificate and social security? How do we connect them with mental health services and the host of things that will make sure that when they re-enter society, they are able to enter the workforce and provide for their families and enhance the communities that they return to. So all of these different things could be termed progressive if you want to, but they are like kitchen table bread and butter issues that, I mean, really aren't that liberal or progressive when you think about it. They're things that, whether you're in uh, Asheville or Atmore or Athens, Alabama, those are things that you know somebody who has been going through that, whether you're white, black, conservative, Democrat. Those are things that are going to resonate with you. And so by really leaning in and focusing on those issues, I think that we have a good opportunity of showing that this is what the kind of progressive policy for Alabama can and should look like as we move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you make a good point. These are issues that really transcend ideology and politics. They're just more about people and quality of life. Let's shift over to immigration. We know that the Trump administration has made it pretty clear that it plans to be extremely aggressive in terms of how it will deal with undocumented people in our country. Have you given, or has SPLC given any thought to how you will respond or what you will do in relationship to some of the things that the Trump administration is apparently is planning to do?
So SPLC's focus on the immigration front will primarily be really in two different areas. Some of our impact areas are the usual decarceration and decriminalization, and then eradicating poverty. And immigration kind of touches on both of those kind of issues. Obviously, uh, the raids that folks are expecting are going to touch on the detention and incarceration aspect. Similarly, from the poverty standpoint, the raids that will take place at places like the poultry processing plants in Coffee County and in Albertville, those are some of the areas where we'll be looking to find ways to support those communities that will likely be affected, but largely in a supporting role uh, of immigrant justice centered organizations that have been doing the work since all the way back in 2010, 2011 with the notorious HB 56 that got passed. So groups like HICA, the Hispanic Interest Coalition of Alabama, ACIJ, Alabama Coalition of Immigrant Justice, those are going to be largely the groups that are going to be spearheading this effort, and SPLC's role, as will others, will be largely finding ways to support them in the work that they're doing. Um, but I did want to speak on kind of how that immigrant justice piece connects to some of the things that I was just talking about. I would not be surprised if you see some pushback from some of the business community uh, because it directly impacts their ability to work. It's kind of one of those areas where uh, capitalism can oftentimes be incredibly harmful to a community, but this is one of those situations where uh, it can be a benefit because a lot of these poultry plants are employing a number of these undocumented individuals. And so if ICE comes in and rounds up these individuals, that's a significant portion of their workforce that is completely wiped out. And the vast majority of Alabamians or Americans across the country likely aren't going to want to come in and work at the same wages that these individuals have and be paid cash under the table like these individuals have. And so it's one of those issues where uh, culture clashes with capitalism, the bottom line. And so,
Yeah, we're both smiling because we're right before you came on, David and I had spoken about this, and we're saying some of the same exact things that that you were saying was yeah. I mean, you have this whole setup where it's not the you're not getting you're not getting traditional American workers to come into a lot of those jobs and work for the wages that are being offered. It's just not going to happen. So you better be prepared to pay a lot more for the price of chicken.
yeah, and that's exactly the thing. So, as people coming into the election concerned about the price of groceries, whether it's chicken, eggs, what have you, A lot of that is because of uh, the exploitation of workers, whether that's here in the United States or uh, internationally with the things that we import. The reason that those prices are able to be so low is because these individuals are being exploited. And so uh, if we end up following through on these policies from the White House, we are likely going to see the very thing that animated a lot of folks to vote the way that they did in November. And so, again, there's going to be likely a real clash there.
Yeah, yeah. Just real quick before we get you out, because I know you've got to get, but you know, looking at some of the executive orders that Trump did sign, and we've talked about the immigrant stuff and what he's doing with some of these things. Um, do y'all see a spot on the legal side of to challenge some of these things? I mean, let's say birthright citizenship. That's going to be, I would say, a pretty huge thing for a lot of families in Alabama. A lot of immigrant families are going to be affected by such a thing. Is that something that the SPLC would look to get involved in, or are y'all focusing more on some of the things that you talked about?
Uh, I don't know whether SPLC directly will be engaged in, but my understanding is that there are already probably about a dozen or so states that have begun challenges against that executive order. One, it's built into the 14th Amendment. There's already, over 100-year-old Supreme Court case law on this from 1898, Wong Kim Ark versus the United States, that speaks directly to that issue. From a practicality standpoint, I'm not sure even how you would actually enforce that. Specifically, where do you draw the line? Is it a first generation individual that was born on US soil? Is it like where is the cutoff? Are folks going to be grandfathered in? And if so, like what is the arbitrary marker that you're going to use for that? Because if memory serves correctly, uh, there is a particular person who resides at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue who is not that distantly removed from the immigrant journey
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah. And not to mention the real president himself, Elon Musk, is
Right.
has some problems in that. Although I will say there are probably some Native American folks out there who heard this and thought, finally, we're gonna get it all back.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nice. But
So
hey,
all
listen,
of you all are birthright citizenship at some point.
exactly, exactly. Listen, hey, Jerome, thank you, man, for coming on and
Yeah,
spending
man.
some time and for the work that y'all do and that you're going to continue to do. It's going to be very important over the next 4 years, and there are probably going to be some late nights, but man, we do really appreciate it. And thank you for coming on and sharing with us, and we'll get you back on anytime you have a couple of minutes to spare, which I'm doubting is going to be few and far between here in the next little bit.
Absolutely. I feel like one of those SNL recurring guest hosts. I'm very much in just tuning.
Yeah.
Well, at some
Yeah,
point, I want one of those like fancy
get your robe, get you a
weekend.
5-time robe. Yeah, yeah, exactly. We get you a 5-time robe. You can be in there with Timberlake and some of the other folks. Not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. Thank you, man. We really do appreciate it.
Appreciate you
Take it
guys.
easy,
Thank
man.
you.
All right. That is Jerome Dees, the Southern Poverty Law Center. They do fantastic work. And listen, they're going, yeah, and it's not necessarily a progressive, conservative sort of thing, man. It's just, looking, like he said, looking out for folks in a poverty situation and helping the least of us to be better and to be served appropriately and to not continually to get the short end of the stick on every single thing. So whatever they can do and whatever we can do, we will do it. All right. Let's slide out. We'll come back, wrap this thing up in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week. We're back in a minute. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person. Thanks to our friends over at Wind Creek Entertainment for sponsoring. Also, our friends at Southern Poverty Law Center for sponsoring. And for the Southern Poverty Law Center's Jerome Dees for coming on and spending some time with us. Really appreciate that as well. We're going to devote the last segment here completely to our right-wing nuts, and that's multiple nuts, because it is we're devoting it to all of the Republicans who over the last few days have stood in front of cameras or run from cameras as news people attempted to ask them about the Trump pardons of the January 6th felons, it's hard for you to call yourself the party of law and order. It's hard for you to talk about your love of police, your support by police unions. Some of this has often confused me because it's typically Democrats that do a much better job of funding and providing resources for police departments, the military. It's also Democrats that let's be honest, pull military personnel out of a lot of very awful situations that Republicans are willing to send them into constantly. But regardless of that, so now it's hard for me, and I think for most Americans, if this is talked about appropriately by the Democratic Party and hammered on successfully by the Democratic Party, it is hard for anybody to buy that you are pro-police when in a situation like this, when we have video of these people attacking officers with flag poles and bats and stun guns, when we're shoving them through the doors, breaking windows out of the Capitol, shoving their way past the police lines, attacking them, kicking them, punching them, dragging them across the floors. Then in addition to all of that violence, storming through into the chambers, ransacking the place, ransacking the offices of lawmakers, stealing items, taking things out of the Capitol, were anything that wasn't nailed down, basically they took with them, and not to mention the fact that those people were there with the express intent to do some harm to those lawmakers.
Right.
We saw the guy with the zip ties. We know that there was a plan to kidnap some people. We know that they were looking for Mike Pence because they were chanting Mike Pence. So
Mike Pence, Pelosi, they wanted them both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Could you imagine what would have happened if they would have caught AOC somewhere? You know what I mean, man?
I mean, and I'm not being facetious at all. I shudder to think what they would have done to that young woman. I mean, I think they would have. Because some of these people, especially some of them, because some of these people are also the people who defecated and smeared the walls with defecation. So. Have they caught that young woman? She's young, she's attractive. God forbid they caught her.
Yeah, listen, look, so this is not us speculating, okay?
Yeah.
These people, after this was over, and we can see it all on video what they did, these people then went on to their other conservative sites on YouTube and elsewhere on the internet and bragged about what they were doing and talked about what they would have done if they could have caught these people, and how disappointed they were when they couldn't catch Nancy Pelosi, they talked about these things. And federal judges, a couple appointed by Republicans, said of these people, you don't belong in society. Literally, not through their sentence. I'm not saying they inferred that through their sentencing. They said it to them. You are a danger to society, and there's something wrong with your brain, and you need to get yourself under control. He pardoned all of them.
Yeah.
Pardoned them all.
All of them, without any consideration, without any, it's just, it's really astounding, that to me shows, who we're really dealing with as president. Because the very person who's supposed to be upholding the Constitution, who just swore, earlier this week that he was going to uphold the Constitution, really violated the spirit of the Constitution with these pardons. people, as you said, that harmed police officers, that were attempting, arguably attempting murder, certainly that assaulted, that destroyed property, that were trying to upturn the government, or take over the government. He sanctioned all of that by pardoning them. How
Yeah.
can that person be trusted to uphold the Constitution?
And here's the interesting part, and I should have brought this up, but sometimes you can't think of everything. This is the problem with Trump. You can't think of everything. I should have brought this up before. Trump himself has said that these people acted irresponsibly and without his knowledge, and he did not know that they were going to do these things, and that they should be held accountable for any violence. Now, this was before the whole thing changed into a tourist visit. Okay, but at the time, you'll recall, people were outraged on both sides of the aisle. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Democrats again did a very poor job of maintaining that fire and maintaining the pressure on people to actually do some acts. And they did a very poor job. We should not, 4 years after the fact, we should not still be chasing around dudes that broke windows out. All right. That should not have happened. We should have had a two-tier track on prosecutions, and the first track should have been the one that we're doing, where we're chasing around these people that did whatever acts and trying to identify them through videos. The second one should have been the folks that we knew instigated this thing and was leading the charge with the fake electors, where we're manipulating the process and doing all these other different things. Where there should have been two tracks running simultaneously, and we should have held number one, that orange asshole, accountable, and for what he did and how he led people. But regardless, now watching these people in the Republican Party who have touted themselves as the law and order party, who have condemned the violence of January 6th, who have promised that Trump's not going to pardon the people that acted violently towards police officers. There's no way. He's a friend of police. He wouldn't do that. To watch them over the last few days attempt to justify and hide from this is comical, nauseating, embarrassing, and infuriating.
Yeah.
It is all of those things. And God, it's so.
Yeah, that's where I land. I land on the infuriating part, because it's the height of hypocrisy. It's a slap in the face of people who were trying to do their job, And a lot of us really, a lot of us liberals have often, been critical of the police, not because we have a problem with the concept of police, but because we have a problem with bad policing. So here was a great example of people doing good policing.
Yep.
They were standing up for democracy. They were trying to preserve the democratic order. And you had these thugs, hooligans, and some of whom I'd say were just flat out animals, acting like animals. Again, defecating, right? Defecating. Come on, who does that? So, in fact, I was listening to one of the police officers who was working there that day in an interview, and he said to this day, he and his family are being harassed, Josh. He said, and I wish I could remember the guy's name, the police officer's name, the Capitol police officer's name, but he said that even this happened. Now think of this is how low some people are, and this is a great example of the kind of people who do not belong in society. Somebody went to his mother's house. His mother was outside raking the lawn or something. Threw a bag of feces at his mother. At his mother.
It's just, they are.
That's animal. That's primate behavior.
They're the worst. All right. They're children. They're childlike in their thinking and in their thought processes.
That's an
Um,
affront to children,
well,
Josh.
you're right.
Lord, half the children everywhere, and as a former child, I resent that.
I
I
understand.
resent that.
It's just that, it's all of this, me
Yeah,
nonsense,
yeah.
this, eh, why is this happening to me? And it's like Trump, with this has ruined these people's lives. And this attitude of, well, there were a lot of people who just wandered into the Capitol that day and they let in. No, you just wander in. I mean, you see what's going on. This is not some excuse. I mean, let me just put it to you like I put it to so many people. I said, all right, listen, I want you to take watch whatever footage that you want to watch of January 6th and what happened outside the Capitol, inside the Capitol. Watch whatever however less violent you want to. Take those people that you're watching and imagine them being black.
Thank you. Black Lives Matters protesters.
That's right.
They'd have all been shot dead that day.
Yep.
They'd have been burying bodies that day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, instead, the woman that, the Babbitt woman that they continue to, to hold up as though she was wrongfully murdered. Trump has called her murdered. She was crawling over people, trying to kick out a window. The Capitol Police inside the Capitol, they were holding the door. Behind them were all of these lawmakers trying to flee and get out of the building. And they were screaming at her to stop, to go back. I have a gun. If you breach this door, you will be shot. They said it repeatedly. And she went through the door. At that point, you're leading a breach of that. And that puts those lives in jeopardy. And man, let me tell you something. You get shot every time, okay?
Yep.
And I do not want her to die. I don't. It's a tragedy that she died. But it's a tragedy of her own making that she died. She was warned repeatedly. They were in the building illegally. They were destroying the property. She was trying to force her way past police officers who were clearly telling her that she was in the wrong, to go back and telling her what the consequences would be if she continued on her path. There is no clearer justified shooting in America. There's just not.
Yeah, I blame Trump and Mo Brooks and Rudolph Giuliani and all of those people on that day at that rally who were riling up those people. There's always going to be a percentage of people in a crowd who are mentally, I'm going to say, incapable of really being discerning about what they should and should not be doing. She obviously, unfortunately, was one of those people. I think she probably thought that she was, because she was so riled up and so full of this false patriotism, she probably thought she was doing something to save America. And unfortunately, she lost her life.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, she was led astray by this belief of whatever they were, and one of the guys, that I talked about in the story that I wrote for today about these people who have been pardoned. I mean, some of the violent people from this state, I just talked about the ones from this state who were pardoned. And he talked about going into the Capitol because they had heard Mike Pence had turned on them. And, he said this in a YouTube video, of course, later when he was describing what happened, and they turned into a mob, man. And we were just going in to take care of business. And that's what they thought they were. This what is so infuriating about what's the length of time this has taken. These people were on video. These people later admitted all of their crimes. They bragged about it. They told on each other constantly. They said all of these things publicly. There was no question of the crimes that they committed. And it has still taken this amount of time to prosecute even the lower level ones. And we still haven't gotten to the top. And it's now cost us. It cost us this feeling of, and listen, he's going to do something else stupid. He is. I mean, McDonald's, unless, but, it just, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that there was an opportunity here to teach a lesson and put a safeguard in place, and this has nothing to do with politics. All right,
Yeah.
this and
Yeah.
nobody went and arrested Trump because they didn't like his damn plan to buy back the Panama Canal or to get Greenland. Okay,
Right.
I mean, they went after him because of these actions. All right, and these actions, I think that even the most partisan person would admit were outside of the norm for a U.S. president. So, all right, let's get out of here.
All right, man.
Till next week, y'all be safe out there.
Peace.